David Edward and David Booker discuss David Booker's book series, Time Is.
David, how are you?
All right. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing very good. It's a pleasure speaking to a 24-year Air Force veteran.
Thank you.
When I say that, I as we talked about, I did 10% of that, 20% of that, I think. Less than 20%, 15% of what you did. I did 4 years and you did 24 years. So obviously, thank you for your service. And I know that
Thank you for yours.
yeah, well, yeah, to a lesser degree, but so let's jump into it, Dave. So and your bio says you turned filling reports out into something a little more beneficial to the world, right? Which is writing books.
Yeah.
And then what? And we're gonna talk about Time Is. You have a whole series out, right?
It's a Time Is series. Right now, there's 5 books out. I'm working on Time Is Changing, which is the 6th book in the series.
Wow.
And I'm not sure where I'm going to go from there. We'll just keep going. I've got a couple of books of shorts out that have a little bit of humor, mystery, and everything else. But Time Is the series is my love.
I mean, yeah, you've written a decent number of books, and they're all very I don't want to say intellectual. That's not the right term, but I guess multi-layered and well thought out would be how I would say them. There's just right. There's a lot. You can read the books at a lot of different levels. Let me put it that way. So, how long have you been writing?
Actually, it's sporadic. I'll sit down. Sometimes I'll write the full day. Sometimes I won't like what I've written and I have to start all over again. But pretty much I try to get at least a couple of hours in during the day.
Now, did you start writing when you got out of the service, or have you been writing for longer than that?
Actually, I started writing 2 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been a very short time, but once I started, I felt I love doing this. This is pretty much my career now.
That's great. And you've written, so that's pretty good. In 2 years, you've written 6, 7, 8 books. Is that right?
I've written a couple of shorts where they're just like one-offs, and I've written some collections, and then, like I said, the Time Is series.
The Time Is series, yeah. That's
those I try to get out every few months just to keep it going.
Well, let's dive into those. What so you mentioned you write for a couple hours a day. What is it? What does the process look like from the time you're getting ready for the next book to actually when you start writing it? And then what does that process look like as you're writing it all the way, to finish?
Well, the problem with writing Time Is in the series is that I have to do a lot of research. For instance, in Time Is, they're talking about Don does a lot of things he becomes a blacksmith, primarily because you can be a blacksmith in any time period. They were always needed. So it goes over a lot of the things that he had to learn, like starting with making nails, making horseshoes, and all that sort of stuff. But I had to research that. I had to research when they go to see Lincoln. What was he like at that time period, living in New Salem? What did he do on a daily basis? And so by doing all this research, it gives it a more live feel to it.
I think that's right. So do you outline the story? I mean, how does it work? Do you start writing and then realize you hit a part you have to go start researching, or do you plan it all ahead of time, or what?
I really wish I could outline stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Most of this is done freeform. One thing leads to another, and that's the style that I do this in. As I'm writing, it's kind of like the planning comes secondary. I start writing where they're going to go, what time period they're going to go, and then I start researching that time period. What am I trying to say? Where are they going, and why?
And we talked earlier, a lot of times, and you mentioned this, so I'm just now repeating what you told me earlier, but a lot of time travel is apocalyptic, right? There's somehow a race against the clock and everything's falling apart, but that's not what you're doing. You're taking a much more interesting approach, I think, right?
Oh yeah, what I like is just to kind of showcase how the average person lived. If I went back to early Rome, there's so much that is the same today that they had then. They had indoor plumbing, they had hot and cold water, they had all the things. Their medical tools are very similar to what we use now. the scalpels and things like that. So it's fun to look back in time and see what's similar and then what's different.
That's, for no reason. Some book I read, I don't even know when it was, a couple of years ago. I read a book, and part of it was dedicated to the ideas: if you speak English, how far back in time could you really go, and still order lunch or whatever. And I think the conclusion there was around 1500, somewhere in there. So do you deal with any of that in your books?
In a couple of my stories, I've had to have them learn Greek.
Uh-huh.
Or what I've done though is there actually is some Greek in there where they're talking in it, but then I request the reader to just assume that we're talking perfect Greek and just kind of work with me here.
Yeah, that's just fine. You're supposed to get at least one of those every book, right? When you just say, okay, this is how it is, guys, just stay with me. And, the reader will accept one big whatever. So I think that's a fair one. So how long does it take you to write one of these books?
That varies, usually about 6 months because of all the research I have to do and all the kind of like rewrites, because I'll start in a direction, realize maybe that's not where I want to go back to a place and start over again.
Are you on a computer when you do this, or typewriter?
Yeah, I've got a laptop.
So you're moving stuff around, and so you now, are you a big first draft, second draft, third draft kind of writer?
Oh, there's a lot of I've had the problem where I'll be ready to publish, kind of doing my reread and going through it and going, oh, yes, this is okay. Wait a minute. I'm missing a part here. It drives me nuts. So I'll have to take it off, come back, redo I'm no good at editing. I'll be the first to admit it.
Right. So do you have an editor that you use also then?
No, that's why it takes so long to put these out.
So you just gotta force yourself to go in there and try and read it objectively. Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's talk about that. At some point, you're in there, and you're the writer, right? You're the creative person telling the story. And then other times you're in there and you're the editor. How do you work between those two roles?
That's a problem for me because I go from the writer to the editor to the reader.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I get sometimes lost in my own work. I'm sitting there reading, going, "Oh, I remember that. That was a good part," and then I forget about the edits, so I have to reread what I was just doing.
Yeah. Well, and your topics require you to really keep track of what's going on, right? Because there's lots of pieces to it, and then on top of that, you're bound by keeping it historically as accurate as the story needs it to be, I suppose, right? I know you go for very accurate. Yeah. So what does someone get out of reading these books? If they're not saving the world through time travel, what's going on in them?
It's kind of showcasing different time periods, things that happened where they'll visit somebody like, have you ever heard of Lepetamine?
No.
Okay. Lepetamine was a person that his whole act, he was a vaudeville person, was to pass wind. And I liked that part of it, the story. That was the first place that they actually go as a team.
Okay.
And they go see his act, and just every time I show it at the Moulin Rouge, every person that joins this group has to go see Lepetamine.
Okay.
But the thing that went on was always a little bit longer, show more of the things that went on besides him.
Okay.
But it's an act that isn't really well known. The Field of Cloth and Gold that was done between Francis and King Henry is not a really widely known event, but my team goes to that, participates in it, and ends up having a sword fight there and having some fun with that.
It's wildly interesting. Is there anything that has surprised you as these books have come out? That feedback you're getting or the reception of them?
Yes, what I get is like I've gotten letters from people going, "That really was real.
Yeah,
they really did do this. How they make a hoof, a shoe for a bull, or some of these other types of things other than horses." they're astonished. That's really what it looked like. That's really the way it does. How things are done, they check on this stuff. And they say, "Oh my God, you got it right." So,
You know what? And I used to live. I'm in Florida now, but I used to live in Colorado, and I was pretty close to Wyoming, the capital up there. And every year they had a big like rodeo kind of show. And one year I went, and they had all of the covered wagons, like accurate historical recreations of what they actually were, what the people actually used across the West. And the level of technology that it was lost, gone to us, but you're looking at it and I'm like, there is just a level of sophistication going on here, just in how things were stored and the different utensils they had and everything. It was amazing. Yeah, I got to believe there's tons of stuff like that back in history that you just can be wildly fascinating and that most of us know nothing about.
and that's what's fun, is to bring this stuff back to
Yeah.
life. And it means that these books can just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's say, so you only started writing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You've gotten somewhere between 6 and 35 books out, depending on how we talk about it. What advice would you have for someone who's watching this and who's trying to figure out, maybe they think they have a book up here, they want to get it out into the world. Maybe they've written some short stories, but they want to kind of figure out the best way to push, because starting a book is one thing, but finishing a book takes a lot of discipline. So there's any advice you might have for someone who's watching this?
Well, the main thing is to write. Just continue writing. We get writer's block, you get all that stuff. A lot of times, if you do free form and just start writing down sentences, writing down thoughts, writing down things, and then the ones that you like, you can carry on with. So, but it's hard to, being a free form type writer. I can't plan things.
Right.
So my stuff's pretty much all free form, but I have that freedom though. And that's what helps me, is by having that free form, I'm not structurally bound by anything except my imagination.
Yeah.
So a lot of it depends on the style of book that you're writing.
So your advice would be to write, and also something you said earlier, which is, don't be afraid to let go of the baby you just wrote if it's not any good, right? I mean, and it's going to happen to all of us. Don't saddle yourself with something that doesn't work just because you wrote it. I think that's something else you kind of said in this, right? So, all right, well, David, look, I hope you nothing but success. The book's a wildly interesting time. I'll put a link to probably your Amazon author profile below this video, just so people can find it. And you said the next book is coming out when?
I should have that one done by the end of, hopefully, this year.
Okay. The end of this year. That's
Give
good.
myself a little bit of leeway there.
Well, you can use your time machine to go back and pull that data in some.
That's right.
All right. So thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please consider hitting the subscribe button.